All over the world, amazing multi-billion-dollar stadiums were painstakingly designed and built just to be used during the Olympic Games. But years after the Games have wrapped, many of these stadiums have become completely useless. Some of them weren't even finished in time for the events they were designed for, while others look almost apocalyptic as they're left abandoned and falling apart. From Rio to Russia, let's have a look at stadiums that ended up being nothing but huge wastes of time, space, and money. Rio Summer Olympics. The 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro were the first time the events were held in South America, so they wanted to do it big. But even from the start, critics argued that Brazil was pouring way too much money into construction projects that would never pay off. It turns out they were right. Brazil spent nearly $13.2 billion building new stadiums and revamping old ones for the Games, about 1.5 times more than they originally wanted to spend. The Maracanã Stadium is one of the most famous. It was originally built for the 1950 FIFA World Cup and hosted 200,000 people, making it the largest stadium by capacity at the time. It was renovated for the 2014 World Cup at a cost of about $500 million, and then it was given another revamp for the Summer Olympics. But after hosting the Games, it was poorly managed and fell into severe debt. Various robberies and incidences of vandalism struck the stadium, leaving it in an eerie state of decay. There are seats missing, broken windows, and a worm-infested pitch. In 2017, the stadium had its power cut off due to unpaid bills. The Olympic Aquatic Centre hasn't fared any better. It was left abandoned with empty pools and a sad, crumbling exterior. Another blow struck the Olympic facilities in 2020, when a judge declared the Olympic areas unsafe to hold any more public events. However, in 2022, Brazil began turning the handball arena into a school. So perhaps some of these abandoned buildings will find uses after all, but they'll probably never make the country back the billions they spent on them. Athens Summer Olympics. If you think the Rio facilities are looking pretty gloomy, then just wait till you see the apocalyptic aftermath of the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens. The Games were a huge source of pride for Greece, who spared no expense creating amazing sporting venues. The Games ended up costing $15 billion. That's almost double what the country intended to spend. The government thought the impressive buildings would be worth it in the end, but now these once glorious facilities are left mostly abandoned and crumbling. Perhaps the venues that fared the worst are those that make up the Hellenico Olympic Complex. Since 2004, the complex has been severely neglected. As a result, it's been reclaimed by nature, and some of the buildings were so useless, they've been demolished. A few of the spaces are still being used, but not in the way that makes Greece any money. For example, the Canoe and Kayak Slalom Center is now a fun place for people to skateboard. Now, the entire Olympic area is covered in decay. There are abandoned pools, villages, training fields, stadiums, and crumbling decorations. Weeds and graffiti cover most of the expensive structures and tracks. There have been plans to revamp some of the facilities, like turning the Olympic Village into public housing. Unfortunately, those plans quickly fell through due to Greece's economic woes. One venue that has done well since the Games is the Panathenaic Stadium, a marble reconstruction of the city's ancient stadium, which people buy tickets to visit. But there's no way this tourist attraction will earn Greece back the billions they spent, creating an Olympic paradise. Beijing Summer Olympics. The 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing blew the cost of the Athens Olympics out of the water. China spent $40 billion, equivalent to about $48 billion today, crafting the perfect Olympic stadiums. About 2 million people were moved from their homes to make space for the Games' lavish facilities. Some reports say these relocations were done forcefully, as residents' homes were bulldozed and turned into construction sites. But it seems it was all for nothing, because now many of these intricately planned buildings are being left to rot. Now, looking around the Beijing facilities reveals empty parking lots being used for nothing but driving tests. The once impressive BMX park has become wild and overgrown. The volleyball stadium is one of the worst maintained buildings. It's covered in rotting wood and decaying signs. Other facilities that once hosted the world's top athletes and excited spectators are left with empty pools and fields of dead grass. Now the area sees more visits from wild dogs than from tourists. Even decor and mascot costumes have been left to decompose in stadiums and once bustling tourist areas. Out of all the city's Olympic facilities, only the Bird's Nest Stadium and Water Cube Aquatic Athletics Center are still pretty popular tourist attractions. The Bird's Nest Stadium costs about $11 million a year to maintain, but it has an operating income of almost $40 million per year. That's not too shabby. Beijing's Olympic facilities almost got a second chance at life during the 2022 Winter Games, when many of the 2008 venues were reused. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic meant the Olympics were much smaller than ever before, leading to a less than impressive year of games and continuing Beijing's money-wasting Olympic curse. Montreal Olympic Stadium. Building impressive stadiums that end up underused is a pretty big fail in the construction world. But what's even worse is spending all that money and not even being able to complete the project in time for its big event. That's what happened with the Montreal Olympic Stadium. Designed for the 1976 Montreal Olympics, the Olympic Stadium featured an impressive 574-foot tall tower. But its ambitious design was a lot more than contractors could handle. The stadium's complicated roof was made of Kevlar and featured retractable cables, but it was so hard to build that it was only finished in 1987, more than 10 years after the Games. Since its construction, the building has a storied history of accidents, which include the roof tearing, beams falling, and walls collapsing, forcing evacuations and causing a few injuries. The difficult roof has had to be repaired multiple times. To make matters worse, the stadium was so over budget that it wasn't paid off until 30 years after the event. Its total cost is estimated to be over $1.6 billion. All of these complications might not be so bad if the stadium was still making a lot of money, but it's included in this video, so you know it isn't. The roof rips so often, about 50 to 60 times per year, that it's hard to host many events in the stadium. It stays standing only because it would cost over $500 million to demolish it, so it's more beneficial to occasionally find a use for the structure. Fortunately, Montreal plans to install a new roof by 2024, so maybe the stadium will eventually find some success. Sochi Winter Olympics. Last but not least, let's have a look at the controversial 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics in Russia, which exceeded their budget by almost $40 billion. When the project was first announced, officials thought that $12 billion was a reasonable amount of money to sink into the Games. But by the time construction wrapped up, about $51 billion had been spent on creating perfect venues worthy of the Olympics. The budget overruns were partially blamed on corrupt oligarch connections. But money wasn't the only cost of building such vast Olympic facilities. There were also allegations of severe environmental damage caused by the construction, as well as the abuse of migrant workers. Building the facilities even caused the displacement of about 2,000 citizens. While the games these facilities hosted were some of the largest in Winter Olympic history, the stadiums built for them have now become almost entirely useless. They're unable to attract many new events, and some top state-run banks are reportedly struggling to pay off their post-Olympic loans. Some of the Olympic villages were left looking like neglected ghost towns just 6 months after the Games. Fortunately, the Russian Olympic facilities haven't fared quite as badly as some of the other stadiums in this video. While they haven't quite earned back their massive budget, some of the buildings have been renovated to host other major events. In 2016, Fisht Stadium was turned into an open-air arena, allowing Russia to host the 2017 FIFA Confederations Cup and the 2018 FIFA World Cup. So, which of these stadiums or Olympic parks do you think is the biggest failure? Or are the Olympics in general just a huge waste of money? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on the most useless and most valuable mega projects around the world. Thanks for watching.